Hi, I'm Willie and welcome back to my channel. I get asked a lot, how did I learn this? How do I learn things? How did I get my troubleshooting skill set? Things like that. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to do this video, and I'm going to show you that. And I'm going to show you just one example of how I, sometimes learn things and troubleshoot things. So let's get into it. We're going to use the Cloud Key in this example. And what had happened is somebody had, for some reason, lost the ability to manage their Cloud Key via either this interface or the actual UniFi interface. So, and the Cloud Key was not physically available. However, they could SSH into it. So they wanted to know, was there a way to, factory default the Cloud Key through SSH? This person had a backup, and I thought about it, and I'm like, hey, you should be able to, even though Ubiquiti at that point, I don't know if now maybe there's a help article or whatever, because I posted how I did it out there, so I don't know if they'll take that and document these commands or not. If they do, that's cool. If not, here's a video on how to do it. So I started poking around, and I thought, there has to be a way to do this. I mean, they do some really nifty things through this command line, or through this GUI, but somehow it's got to translate, on the back end to the actual Linux side. So I thought, how are they doing that? Well, we're probably, passing some sort of scripts or whatever. So I didn't even know at first what web server this was running. So the first thing I did was I took a look at all of the processes that were running on the Cloud Key just by running the psax command. So this will show you all of your processes that are running. So I scrolled down and I was looking for like an Apache. This does not run Apache. It runs Nginx. So I looked at that and I thought, oh, okay, it runs that. So write that down, keep that, as a little piece of information. You can see here's Mongo DB. There's also Java. So then what I did was I started looking around at some things that I knew. So like, where is the default like web page kept for a web server? So usually it's var www. So we look, and that's there. But there's not really anything else here. So then, just from my experience with Apache, I knew that you can configure, different websites using Apache on the same host. So, and I might be oversimplifying this, but so I went to the Etsy folder, and I went to the Nginx folder. And if I'm not pronouncing that properly, let me know down in the comments. I think that's how you pronounce it. So once I got into this folder, I could see there was a sites available and a sites enabled, which now, I'm familiar with Apache, so this is starting to look familiar. So there's probably something in here I can use. So we go into sites enabled, and we see that the Cloud Key WebUI is here. So we'll look at this. So when we do more and we look, this shows us, exactly how this site is configured. And it is pulling, it appears to be pulling all of the documents from this folder. So let's go to this folder. And if you have a lab, don't be afraid to break things. It's got a reset button, right? The worst it's going to do is erase your config and take you all the way back to the factory installed firmware, which is what this is going to do. So we'll see that. But so we navigate over to this folder, and then we can just start looking inside of all of the files until we figure out what's going on. Here's the HTML, and the file that I actually found was the most help in this. Was the settings file, because it actually showed how they are kind of taking the web commands and passing them then to the command line. Now, I way oversimplified that, but this is how I quickly kind of found what was going on. So you can see them, that they are calling, you know, these commands, and this is actually the Ubiquiti systool where they are calling this. So they are defining command pw check, and they're calling command systool. So if we look up here where they're defining command systool, then we see that this is the full path to where that's at. So we ascertained that. So now we're going to go to the sbin folder, and now we're going to look at ubnt-systool. And if we type that in, we are going to see that we can change the time zone, the host name, we can mess with the network, we can do a firmware update, we can do a firmware update status, we can enable or disable the reset button, we can do the PW check, we can create an admin. I think that's probably what that does. We can reboot, we can power off, and we can reset to defaults. So anything that you can do through the web interface can be done from the command line likely. There is another excuse me, there were two commands when I was looking at the file, and what we can actually do is, if we look at this and we look at the U's, let's see, so there's a UBNT discover, a UBNT systools, and a UBNT tools. So if we run UBNT tools, you can see that we've got these other commands that can be ran. So back to our other tool. This is the one that's going to do the heavy lifting. So if you have a backup, I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to show you this. Okay, so we're sitting here, we're at 5.4.11, and I do want to just grab a backup real quick so that the next time we get into the UniFi controller, I'm just going to restore this guy, and I'm not going to have to, you know, readopt everything. So I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, there's my 5.4.11 backup. We'll log out of this. We'll go back to this other interface. We're going to go over here, and we're going to run ubnt-systool reset to defaults. And it's going to sit here and it's going to process that command, and then we lose PuTTY. Now, what I did when I was experimenting with this is I did go ahead and set a DHCP reservation in my edge router for the Cloud Key so that it always obtains that 66.5, so that as I'm messing around with these options, I don't have to keep looking. Okay, yep, we know it's not private. We'll proceed, and you can see that the version of UniFi that is on this firmware is 5.3.8 by default, or that's the default version that's loaded on the Cloud Key. So when we did that factory reset, it completely wiped that out and went back to this version. So if we go to this manage, you're going to see it's going to walk us through like the first time setup, because oh, this is interesting. So look at this. A new version of the Cloud Key firmware is available. So it actually wants us to upgrade the Cloud Key. So 0.6.0 likely has a different, maybe it's got the 5.4.11. I haven't done this before, so we will do that. It'll let us log in. So UBNT, because it is default. And if we go to maintenance, we could check for updates on the UniFi version. I've never seen the firmware update screen like that, so let's go back after this and we'll see if what happens when we update that firmware. I knew that firmware was kind of sitting out there. I didn't know it had been released, so that's good news. Okay, so I went back and went to the UniFi portal itself, and I did get this upgrade firmware. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade this, and it says the Cloud Key firmware is upgrading. So hang in there, and we'll be right back. So this screen does progress a little differently. We do have it switched to downloading, and you can see that the progress bar is actually moving. So that's nice. It's a nice little visual, and it seems to be moving along fairly quickly. Still just have a solid white light on the Cloud Key, which makes sense, and it looks like it's checking, still checking, and now we're restarting, and the LED is doing its flashing thing, so it looks like we are rebooting. Yep. Alright, looks like we are responding to pings, so I'm not sure if this is going to progress, if there's a like a timeout and then it'll load it again. I get a little impatient sometimes. Somebody just went, no, don't do that. Okay, let's see. We're going to load something here. Alright, so it's the UniFi Setup Wizard. Thank you for purchasing UniFi, Ubiquiti's enterprise Wi-Fi solution. Thank you for purchasing UniFi. Thank you for purchasing UniFi. That's an interesting choice of words. So, enable auto backup is on. We're going to restore from a previous backup. Are you sure you want to restore from 5.4 for version 5.4.11? Confirm. The system is being restored. So we'll see what happens here in just a second. So it does look like it did the 5.4.11 upgrade. Let's see if we can restart this putty session. So we were able to log back into putty, and it has 5.4.11. And everything is looking like it's going to load here. Real quick, all those commands we just ran. Let's see. So, yeah, still there. Perfect. So, it looks like our devices are just going to have to take a minute to reconnect, but everything should be good. So, that's, like I said, don't be afraid. If this is your lab, this is how we learn things. We break them, we fix them, we snoop around, we see how they work. So, get in there, get your hands dirty, and check it out. If you have a Cloud Key, now I guess is the time to upgrade to the latest version of the operating system. So, we're going to come back again this week. We're going to do a few more videos. We've got PF Sense on the brain. We've got MikroTik, but we have a lot of Ubiquiti as well. And I ran into a situation over the weekend where I also want to talk about SSH and VPNs and secure tunnels and all that. So expect to see that shortly. But if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Please comment and share. And I'll see you at the next video.